everybody. This is Liz from Augusta, and today I have two very special people that I'd like you to meet. And sometimes in life, we remember specific moments that we have with somebody and certain comments they make, certain lines that we remember. And there's something specific that make them very special to me, and they probably don't even know what it is. But we might get to that, and I might hear you say it again. And if I do, then I'll let you know. So let me have you introduce yourselves, your name, where you're from, and a little bit about yourselves and your upbringing and what makes you who you are.
I'm Karen. We are from Plano, Texas. I'm the oldest of 4 kids. We've been married going on 12 years this year.
Wow.
It's been a minute. It feels not as long as 12 years, but then there's days it definitely feels 12.
That bad, huh?
It has its moments like every marriage, but I wouldn't choose another person to do this journey with. So we have 2 beautiful kids, 2 blessings that we definitely did not think we would get, and we're just doing this journey called life and trying to be the best people we can be.
I love it. How about you?
I'm the second oldest of 5. My dad had 3 wives. The first 3 of the 5 were from one wife, and
Oh, wow.
I shouldn't have said that, I guess.
Nope, that's life.
I do love my other siblings. I have a sister named Danielle. She's 25, and then I have a brother that's 22. We have the same dad. We just don't have the same mom. And then I have 2 other sisters from the same mom. And we're the older group. We're the first group.
Okay, and how did the 2 of you meet?
Actually, randomly at my house, he was there helping my dad work on the AC of their vehicles because his trade is in diesel mechanic, and my dad told him that he had someone for him.
Oh my. Arranged.
I thought he was way too handsome for me. And as every female, you always look at certain guys and you're like, he is so out of my league, like not even close.
Sweet. I love it.
God definitely had a plan. He's loved me through a lot of storms, some that not many guys would stick around for. And I'm serious, like God had the perfect one for me. Even if I get frustrated, he at the end of the day, there's no one else for me.
I love it. I love it. So were you both raised in Texas?
Born and raised, 100%.
Wow.
Only known Texas.
I was born in Dallas County, and she was born in Fort Worth.
Wow. How many places have you guys been outside of your cities? Have you traveled much?
Oh, yes.
Oh, you mean like vacation?
No, just out of your area.
Yeah,
no, we haven't traveled. Like, she's asking if we've traveled, like
Austin. We've done San Antonio, Corpus Christi. You're meaning like that aspect, correct?
No, I mean like out of the country.
Oh, no, we've never lived anywhere else, only Texas.
Yeah, well, that's great because you're the perfect people for me to have this conversation with. How in the world did you guys hear about Augusta?
Yeah, so I had a unique one of my last jobs I had before joining Augusta was working for United Rentals. I had a service truck, and I worked on heavy equipment, not like your son, but I did work on boom lifts and smaller versions of what your son works on.
Mm-hmm.
But so I started listening. My dad, he owns a landscape company, and that's what I grew up doing. And but after I was working for United Rentals, driving around, and when you're driving around, you do more driving than you do actually working. Getting to certain job sites, I would start listening to Dirt Monkey, Stan the Dirt Monkey. I went and looked up his website, Dirt Monkey University. And so I was because I was trying to help my dad out systematize his business, even though I didn't know nothing about systems, really, to be honest with you. And then one YouTube channel led to another. I ended up getting into Lawn Care Millionaire.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually, I was thankful that God, the algorithm lined up to where I went to end up started following Mike and listening to his stuff. And then went and looked up the website and the franchise. At first, when I seen the $80,000, down at the bottom, it talks about what it could cost.
Yes.
And it scared me away for a little bit. So for about 2 or 3 months, I didn't mess with it. But I ended up booking a call with them in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
And it was September, and then I canceled, rescheduled, and we followed through in October with a call. And but yeah, I was already listening to him for about 6 months of 2020.
Okay, so let's break that down a little bit. You said your dad had a lawn care business. So did you grow up mowing lawns and doing projects and cleanups and landscaping?
Yeah, he had this. Mostly, he had one client for a while, and it was just to pay the bills, basically, because he worked for the guy full time. And he has a unique story how they got connected. Yeah, because they had a friendship of about 40 years, which is a long time. It's very unique. But
Mm-hmm.
we actually met him as a head football coach. My dad played semi-pro football for 13 years.
Hmm.
And during that span of the 13 years, he started working for him as an employee, and then he started letting him mow his yard. And this guy had like 7 acres, and we did Christmas lights. He had like back then was like a $700,000 house. It's worth about probably $2 million now, maybe.
For sure.
But it was 7 acres of property, had 200 or 300 trees on it. So yeah, I learned everything mostly on that property. And then the shop space, we started mowing because he owns a fastener company, and which he just recently passed away, actually, Jerry Dunsmore. But anyhow, my dad mows those properties still.
So when you were driving for United Rental and you found all these landscaping companies, is it because you were thinking that maybe you could start your own landscape company and you were just, playing with the idea of doing that?
Yeah, I had actually wanted to get back into it. We didn't have any kids at that time. It was just a short time when I started listening to, because it was around 2018 when I started listening to some of the guys on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
2020, I ran into Mike, because I was with United Rentals for 4 years. So I was listening to a lot of podcasts on YouTube on, systematizing, marketing. Brian Salon Maintenance talks a lot about that. And like I said, it was almost 2 years before I ran into Mike. Around 2020 is when I ran into him on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
But
so
yeah,
you were trying to provide for your family, and then you had kind of started lawn mowing on the side.
Yeah, but the thing is United Rentals paid me really well. I actually had a really good industry. I mean, but for me, it was a growth thing. Like it was like, okay, I've reached my limit here.
Yeah.
And we were fixing to have our second child in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
Our daughter, who's fixing to turn 3 now, she was born in May of that year, 2020. And so for me, it was like I've reached my full potential here, I feel like. And, it was time for me to grow. Ultimately, what had happened was we had a message from our church, the 9 keys to growth.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when I said, no, I've got to do something. And
so you felt like you hit the ceiling in your personal growth and in your professional goals in your career, and you needed to do something else.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
That's wonderful. Not very many people act on that. They just stay stuck. So that's pretty exciting. So when you started listening to Mike, you heard him talking about a franchise, but what really vetted him to you? Like, he's young, you hadn't known him long. What was the attraction to him?
It's mainly just, I wasn't turned down by his age or nothing. For me,
my inner circle.
Yeah,
I can tell you 100% is the aspect of what I had received from him is the most attractive thing about Mike's personality and how he didn't preach God, but he literally exuded God and truth. Like that for him, hands down. Like anytime I ever talked to him, he was like, there's this guy, like I can't explain it.
Mm-hmm.
He got God, like he has something in the fact that just how he was changing the professionalism, like his motto, like stood out hands down to Audie. That's all I heard left and right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Were you listening also?
No. No, I listened to him, but no, he would always send me. If you go back, I have a ton of videos or little clippets of different stuff, but no, man, like I wanted him because I knew he reached the capacity of the tap out, and he was just not developing the way he wanted to, and he was making excellent money for them. He just kept saying, I want to make that money for me. I want to do that for me. I want to give something to our families. And that's when he started. I was like, I was terrified. I'll be 100% honest. I was terrified, but I knew at the end of the day, I wanted him to be fulfilled. And I knew if he was feeling fulfilled, it would trickle down.
Right. So Audie, how was it for you? Is that what you were feeling also, or did you have a different angle?
Yeah, it's exactly. And she helped remind me of the thing that was like just the gravity that pulled me that direction. And just in case it got missed, it was literally like I felt like, because when people are teaching principles that are kingdom principles.
Yeah.
And that's why whenever I know we're talking about on the plane of earth and humanity, it's just a business. But the thing is, God expects multiplication. And and that's what she was trying to say, and she helped remind me of what was the why of why Mike was so special, I guess you would say.
Okay, so it's one thing to see him as a person and see what he's exuding, but then to join the franchise and become part of that. What was your reason to finally decide to join?
It was like for me, so I had to transition from a corporation and know that I wasn't going to I was going to be successful. And so for me, and I knew in order to, I only had about 6 months to prove to her really that it was going to be worth it.
True.
And at some point, actually, right before I quit my job, because I had to, when we came back from training, I didn't quit. I actually would do estimates after work and mowed a couple of yards, not very many, but she knows that I'm not able to multitask like that. And at one point we were in the parking lot at church and she was crying and I was upset. And she told me, she said, Audie, you either need to quit United Rentals or you need to go ahead and quit the Augusta. She said, whatever you do, I'm with you. But
how far in were you when that happened? How long had you?
4 months in. We'd
4 months in.
Yeah, we'd only been home it was April of 2021.
So from the time you heard about Mike till the time you came for training, how long was that?
Yeah, it was less than so 2020, I heard about him around June. And then we had training in February 2021.
Right. So what stands out to me is in 2021, when you came for training, I had never met you. I didn't know much about you because the whole span of time was pretty short that all of that happened for you. And then when you got here, I could tell, wow, they haven't followed Mike very long because they have a lot of questions that probably if you had been following for years, you would have known already. And then you kept talking about the other business and that business and wondering how you were going to do both and what you both were going to do. And then I remember we were at the taco place right beside the shop in Bellingham, and we were walking back, and you knew this wasn't going to be easy, this big transition that you made. But Karen, I think it was you said, but God told us to do this. And it just gave me the chills. And I'm like, I was thinking, how do you argue with that? Like, what is there to say to that? If God told somebody to do it, it was extremely humbling because I was able to go back to Mike and say, Mike used to minister a lot in church and things. And then he thought he could pour his life into people and minister in a different way. And at that day, I was able to say, wow, God told somebody to join us and to do this with us. And I said, that should give you a lot of confidence. He's super humble. and didn't say much, but it's to him, he said that's a lot of responsibility for him,
Yeah.
So that's what really impacted me when I met you. So then you went back for training. And how has it been for you guys? It's been 2 full seasons. Is that right?
Yes. Going into our
Third.
their third. It's our second spring rush, technically.
This is going to be your second full spring rush?
That's what Mike talked to me in November about. He feels like it's because whenever I quit United, I still didn't quit till the end of April.
Yeah, the end of April.
And so he says this will technically be your second spring rush.
I see. Was it Mike that you originally had your phone call with?
Yeah, Mike. Yeah. I was in. Somehow we got into the 14. I don't even know how we got 14.
Well, that's pretty exciting. I'm happy that we have those memories. It's pretty great because when there's 500 or 1,000, you're going to know that you were on the bottom with us, building something, making all the mistakes we made and everything, that we were still building something great together. So your first year, how many trucks, employees, and revenue?
Just one truck.
So you're running everything yourself and without an employee?
We had one for about 6 weeks, but he wasn't, he wasn't that production. He was a friend of mine, and we were trying to help him out, and he was trying to help us out. And your yards are further apart than you want, and so it was hard on both of us, really. And but yeah, our first year was rough. I mean, I had like a broken foot for like 5 months, so it was.
Yeah. Oh man.
I had to tough it out,
Yeah. So Karen, do you work out in the field with him when he gets behind?
When I'm able to, yes, ma'am. I've done it all. I've mowed. I've put out gravel. I've helped do trim trees. I was pulling, like literally harnessing stuff down and unhooking and pulling tree limbs away. I do leaf cleanups. I do whatever I've got to do. So.
And you also run the office, right?
I do.
Do you take your own phone calls?
No, thank God. No. Grateful for command center in that aspect, 100%.
Okay. I love your glasses, by the way.
Oh, thank you very much.
I've always loved them from the time I first met you. But that's good. I wasn't sure if command took your calls or not, but you do all the other office work. You run the software, you do the invoicing and the scheduling and everything.
Yes, ma'am, I do.
And so is your plan to just have you and Audie running the business together, or are you guys looking to grow the team and the fleet?
Grow 100%. We actually have a new employee starting April 1st.
Okay.
So in Jesus' name.
How do you feel about that, Audie? How did you market for an employee? What did you do?
It was, they talk about you get this gut feeling, and sure enough, you walked in the door, you had the gut feeling. It kind of reminded me of me.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
So, we did it. We interviewed for about 39 minutes, and he asked a lot of questions. So that's another way I knew too, though.
For sure.
They seemed genuine, We did another interview last Sunday, and it was only one question. It was like, what's the schedule? And it was like, it seemed to me he was more like showing up to get unemployment. You know what I mean?
Yes.
After looking back, at first I felt excited, but after I digested over a day or so, I was like, yeah, he's just showing up to. But the first interview we did, which is the guy we're hiring at the end, the beginning, a couple of days from now, he just seemed genuine. His questions. I've kept some contact with him over the last 2.5 weeks, and he's replied back. So far, it looks like it's a go ahead.
Yeah. So question about that. Had he researched your company before he came for his interview?
I send him videos. Yes. Anybody I do an interview with, I go to our website and go to careers, and I send them, I'm like, disregard the actual application, but there's 4 short videos. Watch them. I said, it gives you more information on who we are, what we're about, and what our goals are. And so to me, a 5-minute video, if you can't sit and watch a 5-minute video, then you're really not there to be interested in. You're just there to clock in and clock out. So
yeah. So it's a big deal to you that they've watched those videos, and to Audie that they actually have some questions about what's up about the company and what's going to happen.
Absolutely.
Those are 2 of the things. Are they 2 of the top things that you look for?
Well, like when I do, because we definitely have learned over the last 2 years as far as interviewing. Um, my go-to for when I do it is, you invest in us, we want to invest in you. What you put in, you're going to receive even more. And so it's definitely when they show interest in truly, I, who really wants to go out and mow lawns, especially in the state of Texas? It's
Yes.
not. And
Yeah.
so, but at the end of the day, what you're going to receive is way past than just mowing lawns. And we want to show people that. And I definitely feel that we're trying to. We just got to get them over that hurdle. We
Yeah.
got
So
one guy.
So what's the reason of not having more employees last year?
We went through 4 employees.
4
Okay.
or 5, yeah. But she did like at least 15 phone interviews, and
No one wants to work.
and
No
so,
one wants to work.
You know, and the main thing was with us, what happened is our routes are not dense enough. So, you know, whenever your day is only about $550 a day, you
Yep.
can't really afford to pay somebody. Because, and another thing we didn't have is we were offering 18. Well, we're finding out 20 is probably our mark
For base wage.
Yeah, for base. And
Yes.
so, and you know, our labor rate, because our routes ain't big enough or dense enough. So there's some things we're having to learn. And in our area, it's a lot of price competition. So, our first year, we made the mistake of going too low because we started out too high.
I
So,
see.
you know, my first 2 months, you know, we had like, or if you go back to our first March, we had like 79 estimates, but I was trying to go high on them. For the first 60 days at Augusta, I was going high. And then and then the second 60 days, I was going too low, below $30 a yard. So, I mean, for us, last year was our year where we found where our limit is.
Yeah.
I see. And were you having your calls with Lee, like coaching calls? So one month you had one strategy and the next one you did?
No, I did most of the coaching calls. We were staying consistent, like literally trying to, we'd found our little number, or at least what we found that was still going to growth us, but yet still get some customers in. And
the reason I asked that is because it seems so strategic that you went high and then you went low. That seems very strategic.
Yeah.
Well, that was all.
And that's why I asked if that was from the coaching calls, because it seems like you would have somebody strategizing with you.
No, that was all.
During that time. So the first year, I got to do coaching calls up until about October of 2021. Then Lee, October, November, sometime Lee took over. And so I did coaching calls with Mike. And then when Lee took over, I did 2 with him, 2 or 3 maybe. And then come January or February forward of 2022, Karen did all the coaching calls, because it was just mostly me last year out in the field, which we did pretty good. You know, our first 8 months, we did 100,000 in 2021, 808,000. And then our second year,
152.
We did 152
with just one guy, pretty much.
That's fantastic. So your goal for this upcoming year, what does that look like with trucks, employees, and your jobs?
So I did get my second truck running last summer, and then I put a little bit more money into it, but it's not painted or nothing like that, because the only truck we have decaled and painted, it's got like 250,000 miles on it. So we are. I just need one more thing on the other truck, but it's running right now, and then I need to get it painted and decaled. But right now we're running low on cash. So as you know, cash will kill us or bring us up or bring us over the hill, I guess you'd say. Right now we're just kind of trying to, survive, if you will, without spending too much, because we're just kind of barely making it, if you will.
So then at the beginning of spring here, are you doing door hangers or something that's a little more affordable than Google Leads or anything like that? What's your plan for marketing?
We have EDDMs ready to go out. So that we've been waiting for more consistent warmth weather. And so this actually, I was planning on doing that Monday or Tuesday of this week. And so we already have them ordered, ready to go. It's just getting them out the door.
Yes. So in Texas, it's hot. And so do you guys mow all year, or do you move into what we call winter services?
Winter services.
Okay. And does it get cold there?
Yes, ma'am. It does.
Yeah. And it snows?
The last 3 years we've actually gotten ice and snow. Normally it doesn't. Like, we'll get a little bit, but we got iced in for about 48 hours here. It definitely gets cold. We're usually in the 20s and 30s on really cold days, but average about 40, 45. So it's cold when we're used to 110,
For
110. So.
And then your mowing season, does it run April to November, or how does that work?
March till November.
March to November. So you've already started for this year.
Kind of, because some yards are dormant still. So the ones that aren't spraying for weeds, they've got weeds that are growing, like real fast. So everybody's kind of on a bi-weekly right now. But we've also had an early spring, and that's everybody has.
Last year it was a big struggle. We didn't really start mowing till April.
Yeah. So to many people, it's very rare to have the husband and wife together, running a business together, still getting along. And it's rare for me to be able to have the husband and wife that are together working in the business on. So if I can ask you a few questions about that, have you designated roles and responsibilities in order to make it run a little more smooth, or do you still bump into each other a lot?
We bump into each other all the time. No, but really, Karen does a lot of the stuff that keeps people from getting to bed and getting up or getting up early when they shouldn't, and going to bed late when they shouldn't. So I don't have to work those 65, 75-hour weeks. I still have to work those 50 to 60-hour weeks, but they're not 65-hour. Because usually I can just. She's doing a lot of the what I call the hard stuff in the business. When we did have an employee for 2 or 3 or 4 weeks last year, she was doing payroll. She was making sure their taxes are getting, withheld and stuff like that. And so, she pays our monthly taxes for state of Texas. She does all those other things. And she does pay bills. Pay our mower. Because we just have a couple little mowers that we have, that we still owe on or whatever, she does a lot of.
So she does the employee, the HR, the admin, and you feel like that's stuff that you don't bump into her so much because she's just going to deal with that part.
Yeah. The only thing we have bumped into each other on is we're still learning the scheduling that, prior to we knew we were going to have a early season, and I thought we were just going to have a full month of this month of March. Well, it got cold. We had some cold dips over the last 10 days, and so that's where me and her have probably bumped into each other. Is I'll pull the throttle in and we'll go, and we'll say, okay, put them all on the list, and then all of a sudden it'll rain, and it's like. And then we bump into each other because we got to take those off, and we got to move the cleanup to today because it's going to be raining. We do bump into each other. But
so in that moment, do you hop into Service Autopilot, the CRM yourself, or do you tell her, I want to move this, this, and this? Can we move this, this, and this? And can you call the people and move the cleanup? Is it Karen that does all that?
Yeah.
And does Karen argue with you about how it should go? Okay. Yeah. I look at scheduling and Service Autopilot like a chess game. And
see, it's literally if you don't move something just right, like it's a domino effect.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's why I asked, because the bumping into each other part is huge right there, because he's doing the actual action of doing all the jobs. You're trying to play the chess game. And then the two of you working together. I know exactly what you're dealing with, because Mike and I did that. We had to decide, this is mine, this is yours, this is mine, this is yours. And then we found, when we started the next business, when we started the Airbnbs and the real estate, we started the Airbnbs, and until we hired somebody, we wanted to learn all the systems ourselves. So we're both trying to do all the stuff in the systems. And I would leave Augusta and go to the Airbnb to clean it. And he'd be there. And I'd be like, what are you doing? He goes, I'm trying to help you. I said, I'm supposed to do this. And we realized we just kept bumping until he's like, you know what? It's because we haven't decided who's going to do what yet. And so then we had to do that with that business. And so you just keep hitting these roadblocks, and then you have to divide your roles and responsibilities. So
for him, I can tell you, you don't want him in service autopilot. So that right there, in reality, it's just ours is we're great communicators, but we're also great fighters. And so it's just finding that when to just step away and walk away. Yes. It will work out at the end of the day. Like, that's what we both have to, and I'm speaking loudly, it's both of us that have to walk away and say, okay, I'm either in the wrong or I'm right, but at this moment, neither of us are going to get this fixed. So let's just take a moment and walk away.
Okay, so when you're in the middle of a route, it's in the middle of the day and he's out working, and you guys are trying to maneuver on how to wrap up the day and what jobs to move around. Are you able to set that stuff aside? And like, he just makes the call like, hey, can you move so-and-so to the end? I'm not going to be able to get to Miss Smith's job, but can you let her know? And then I'm going to go on to the end of the route and finish it. Do you guys kind of set aside all personal and just go into like business mode together to wrap up the day? And then if you were mad about it, you talk later?
Yeah, 100%. Like, that's one thing I feel like, and it's also, I think it's the fact that they were older.
Okay.
12 years does help communication skills in that aspect. Like, we were just talking about a job that didn't get completed this last Saturday. I already moved it over, but I was communicating like, hey, is that okay? And he was like, it's going to have to be okay. And I was like, well, I knew that, but I wanted you to know that's okay. And because I know what this coming week looks like. Like, even though he's out there in the field and he knows what it looks like I'm seeing the billable hours. I'm seeing what has to be done, especially with the warm weather that's going to be coming this week. It's going to grow. And so I was just like trying to communicate like, hey, this is what's coming up. We went through the schedule before we got on this call. And so we definitely put aside and let's get this done, because once it's time to clock out, we're clocked out. Like, we're together at that point.
Yeah, so that was going to be my next question that people would ask. Do you have a specific way or time that you stop business and then you do life and kids and family? How do you shut that off?
We don't.
Yeah, and is that okay? Is that okay with you that you don't shut it off?
We know we're still in growth mode, and it's part of growing. You're going to have days where it's not as prevalent, and then there's days that it is more prevalent, 100%. But we know at the end of the day, it's the stage we're in, and we have to keep growing and keep moving forward to get to that next stage.
A little bit ago, you mentioned something about some challenges in your marriage and not knowing if you were going to have the children. And was having children a challenge for you? Obviously, you have two beautiful children now. And how was that experience for the two of you? And did it cause strain on your marriage?
Well, it definitely did. We actually miscarried 6 babies through the first 7 years of our marriage. It took a more toll on me being the woman.
For sure.
I actually will be celebrating 6 years of sobriety in August of this year. And
congratulations.
That is something that when you're in the middle of it, you don't see it ever happening. And
yeah,
this guy, like, he was patient even when he didn't want to be. Definitely, he's a fixer, and he wanted to fix me when it wasn't his place or job. It was God and myself. Mm-hmm. And God was merciful and allowed me to be able to get out of it and blessed us bountifully.
right there, we better stop, because there's people that are struggling with that all the time. And I'm sure a lot of people in Augusta Nation and other people. How were you able to come to a place that you even recognized that you had an issue and come to a place where you know that you needed help?
Actually, I ended up in the hospital. That's the main reason why. I'll just be honest, like I was a meth addict for, in reality, 2 years off and on. I'd been struggling with drugs in general since I was 19, and I'd get clean for a while, and then I would substitute. If it wasn't drugs, it was alcohol and different things here and there. And when I started losing babies, instead of dealing with grief, and grief is a very crippling thing, but I didn't really understand that it was grief. Like, you know it, but you don't really understand it.
Right.
And then I started medicating left and right, and then started just using harder drugs. And before I knew it, it had taken over me. Like, it took over every aspect. It was my air. It was my everything. And all I could see when it come to him, that he was trying to dictate me and tell me what I needed to do versus him trying to help me. And everybody, I shunned everybody, and I moved out. We were separated from June till September, and through that time, I got really, really bad, and ended up in the hospital. Couldn't walk, detoxed for over a week. Bad. And everybody's like, you didn't go into rehab? The hospital was rehab. Me not walking, I literally couldn't walk normal for about 2 months without wobbling. They could never figure out why, but I was malnourished. I wasn't eating. I wasn't drinking water. Like, I was just surviving until my next fix. And then I started going to counseling, going to church faithfully, and truly got healthy. Like, truly learned how to grieve. Truly, I found someone that could be non-biased, that just wanted the best for me, listened to, probed, made me really ask the hard questions, the questions that no one wants to answer. And when I truly got healthy, I found God in the way I'd never found him. And the moment I did that, it was never going back, like, never.
So when you met, did you have an addiction that Audie didn't know about?
No, we actually had just gotten clean, and from what I remember, I was honest about that. Like, he knew, and I was putting my foot forward into trying to be the good person that
For sure.
and like anybody does, until
Totally.
you're really ready to get that true help. But I was good until our first miscarriage. It was a year into our marriage, and it was like every time I turned around, we'd take a break from trying to get pregnant, and then we'd get pregnant, and there it goes again. And it just was a snowball effect. Truly. It literally, in 5 years, it was 6 babies, and it was just a downward spiral.
And your hormones, I'm pregnant, I'm not pregnant, I'm pregnant, I'm not pregnant. I can't even imagine how hard that must have been on you. How was everything for you, Audie, when you were watching her suffer and felt like you couldn't do anything to help?
When, I was raised by my dad, so I wasn't raised, emotions weren't something I could pick up on, really. Really, my part in the whole matter is not being a prayer warrior, really, because there are some things you really can't war with unless it's like my father-in-law said about a month ago, before Abraham dug wells, he built altars. And so those first 6 years of marriage, I didn't have an altar in the house, because for me, it always, the way I recovered from loss, whether it was just some, whatever it was just keep moving to the next day, to get,
Yep. Just push forward.
And so, I just wasn't sensitive enough to her, if you want to use the 5 love languages, and, because, when people are going through grief like that, you could talk differently, you know what I mean? Instead of worried about the bill that didn't get paid or whatever, and those kind of things, and, really, like I said, the altar is the main thing, having the altar in the house.
And so when she started to get some help, Karen, back to the question of when you recognized you had a problem, it was basically forced on you to face it, right? Because you had to go into the hospital. And so you were forced to detox.
Like, I knew I wanted to, like, in my heart of hearts, like, even when in your highest high, you're like, I don't want to live here. I don't want to be stuck here forever. Like, this is fun, but it's fun for a season. And I could see the misery I was living in, the uncertainty, but no, I wouldn't have asked for help. God put me in a place where I had to.
Mm-hmm. So what do you think the elements of your healing were? Was it having a good counselor? Was it having good medications to help you get off of the drugs? Do you feel like it was all something spiritual, prayer? What were the main ingredients of that?
Prayer of family. My husband, my parents were definitely interceding. And then, like I said, a church family that surrounded me, that acted like I hadn't been gone or done anything, that just picked up where I left off and put me in a place where I was being used and nurtured as I was a newborn all over again. Just they were giving my soul and my spirit something I needed so desperately.
Now, in Augusta Nation, there are people, even that I've talked to this week, that don't have friends and they don't have support of family. And they actually call those of us in Augusta their family, which is what's very unusual about Augusta Nation. And to have you share this today is something that others can't even talk about. But to have somebody listen to you two and tell and hear that there's actually hope, to think that you're actually running a business together, is phenomenal. And if there's anything that you could speak some encouragement to them, to know that you're going to get through this, but you have to make hard choices. And you can come to a place where you can actually run a business together. How have you guys moved through that to be so healthy in your relationship today?
God, without a doubt. Like, I say that jokingly, but it really is 100%. We know that at the end of the day, regardless of Augusta or not, this is first. This is first. And when this is right and this is right, everything else flows right. And when you focus on making sure today is all I can handle and this is what I'm focused with, tomorrow is not here yet and tomorrow is done with. So we've got to focus on today and move forward. What can I control? What can I not necessarily control, but what can I make sure that I'm doing my best in? And it makes, even when we're frustrated and even when we want to yell at each other, like, this is where it's at. This is what it's meant for. That's why we work so hard for Augusta, is to make sure that we will always survive past this.
Yes. Yes. How about you, Audie?
As far as I have to rephrase the question, I guess.
Yeah. What would you say to others that are going through a tough time? Maybe they feel like there's no hope really with addiction, alcohol, and then to look at the two of you this many years later, that there's actually healing and there's help. Do you have anything you would want to say to anybody that's gone through what the two of you have?
Yeah, just, a lot of, like what Karen said, is, you do have to find that family. And like you said, is, really unique opportunity that Augusta has, is to create a family. And, that's what the church is designed for as well, but we can be that community too,
right?
Because we're part of the body still. even though we're connected to an organization, we're still part of the body of believers. And one of the principles that I try to always lean on is that we're supposed to take and break the bread, not only in fellowship with one another, but also we're supposed to find time with fellowship with the Creator. And because really, that's the only way forward, really, is to have that relationship with Jesus and to actually walk as a disciple.
Mm-hmm. So you would say that's your secret power for the two of you. And so in the business in this upcoming year, your goals are, do you have a number that you're working towards, a certain amount of employees? What's your plan?
Our goal is mainly we're trying to focus on the number side of it. So our goal is to try to get to 22,000 and see how we handle it as far as with one employee and getting the second truck going and maybe him out in it and me out doing cleanups and stuff and some yards that are a little further out or not dense areas.
And mine is that, but finding that one employee, like the one that will actually fight the fight with this, like stick with us while we grow it, like someone that is going to have his back in every aspect.
Right. And then what's your big, audacious, hairy goal? Your BHAG. Big vision.
215. For 215 this year, like
215.
Like that 75,000 more, it's doable. Like it's not outrageous, but it's doable.
Yeah. That is, that's exciting. I'm really happy to hear that you guys are visionary like that and that it's going to be a successful year. How are you feeling going into the spring rush, experiencing what you did last year? Are you scared? Are you excited?
Definitely excited.
Yeah.
Feeling overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Over the phone estimates, I feel like, I wish I would have stuck with it last year. I didn't stick with it.
Was that because Command Center was going through such a transition and you felt like some were wrong and you couldn't really depend on that? So you felt forced to have to keep going out to the job sites?
It's mainly our prices. I don't feel like my prices was right. Like I don't have the hourly rate right. And I didn't have the right, which we ended up getting right, but it took us till June, July, where it was, we finally decided, okay, well, it doesn't matter. We're from 4,000 square feet all the way to 6,000 square feet. We're going to keep the same price for weekly and bi-weekly. Not same, you know what I mean? Like
totally
when we fill out the estimated calculator, but we didn't actually get that done right till June or July. Whereas I wished we would have had that same number in March of last year. I felt like because we picked up like 14 yards at the first 2 weeks of March,
So now with that number dialed in and starting this season, and if you do 5 and 9 rounds of door hangers or something, your route density is going to really grow this year.
It's actually grown exponentially or at least towards the end of last season. And already I feel like we picked up several that are much closer to several of our clients. And I feel like that's definitely a God thing, knowing that we're continuously being in those areas. People are starting to really, again, the third season, it's out there. It's definitely picking up.
Yeah, that's exciting. And how about you, Audie? Are you scared or excited or?
Yeah, I'm excited. We did just change it a little bit. So we went up $5 on our hourly to 65 from 60 to 65. Okay. But it only increased it an average of about $3 per weekly and about $6 for bi-weekly. So I'm glad it didn't go over too much, but it's about getting those two numbers right.
Yes.
Filling out that estimate calculator based on the square footage and then having the right number. But I am excited. The reason why we had to go up, though, after getting them 14 yards is because I could only handle about 80 yards, 90 yards by myself. And that's just barely making it. Like if with no rain, if we get rain, I won't make it. And so that's why, we really just want that one employee, and we want to try to get that number up to about 22 or 25,000 a month. and about 120 yards, so we're at 80 something. What are we at?
85 or 86.
Yeah. So we're not far, right?
Mm-hmm. For sure. So as we start to wrap up, could you share some podcasts, audibles, sermons, anything that you feel like have benefited you, kind of what you're bringing in now to grow and to change? If you're in Augusta Nation, you're always trying to change and get better. That's kind of the fiber of what we're all made out of. But could you share, both of you?
I've actually been going through a book that he suggested. It's by John Bevere, Driven by Eternity. And that aspect, just knowing that right now what we're going through, all the hardships, all the frustration, if that's not what drives us, it's eternity. And so keeps you driven and focused on the end goal versus staying stuck. And then, of course, the Bible, 100% without hesitation. I started going through Atomic Habits. He started listening to it. Last month?
Yeah. Another book that may have not been heard of. Have you ever heard of QBQ, The Question Behind the Question?
No, sounds fascinating.
It's a really good book.
I'll read it.
Yeah, it's and he's got 2 or 3 other books that kind of go with that kind of follow the same, but the building block is the QBQ, Question Behind the Question.
Okay.
By John G. Miller.
Okay, I'll check them out.
But she had a quote she wanted to read, if you want her to read it.
Yes, I'd love quotes from each of you today. That would be wonderful.
Read yours right there.
It's called Your Values Determine Your Priorities. Your priorities determine your direction. Your direction determines your destination. And so when you have a value that is not just earthly, it's heavenly, then it just trickles down and it determines everything.
That's beautiful.
And then a quote I had is out of another book that because we only have 52 Audible books, but I'll go through a lot of them like 2 or 3 times, and usually on the 3rd or 4th time I start taking a bunch of notes. Like whenever I get to a certain spot, I'll pause it and I'll write down a sentence or whatever that I like. But in this one, it's spiritual. It's spiritual discipline, the essential practices of the Christian life. And it's by, is that Robin?
Yeah, Robin Johnson.
Robin Johnson. But in that book, I found a quote that I like that deals with time. It says, life has no other way except only one form of, it accepts only one form of currency for knowledge, and that's time. And I like that quote a lot.
Yeah, that's
great. It kind of reminds me of Mike,
Yeah.
He's so sensitive with his time,
Yeah, for sure. It's a valuable commodity.
Yeah.
We have found. So it's not often that people get a platform to really share to a lot of others. It's not just when we post these, but it's the people later on that are listening and running small businesses and maybe thinking of joining Augusta, but not even that, to all small business owners. Is there anything the two of you would like to share? Some sort of encouragement or cautionary or anything you'd like to share for others?
The main thing is ask questions, like, especially if you're going in with Augusta, that's what they're there for. Like, don't feel like there's a stupid question. Just ask it. Like, you'll never know unless you ask, and be patient with yourself. Like, there's always room to grow. You just have to be willing to grow.
And then for me, it was not focusing on the first few of the 5 stages of growth, which maybe it was 6 stages of growth. But for me, it was, I don't care what your prices are till you get to 200,000. Went back and listened to that last year sometime. Now they've updated the training, so I don't know where it's at. I'm going to have to find it again because they've brought in some the newer stuff.
Yeah, it's on the dashboard.
Yeah. Oh, it is still.
Yeah.
I went and looked, but the videos were a little bit different than than last year's videos for the training, which I'm excited to go back and look because Chuck's all in this one.
They're way better now, let me tell you.
I like the ones that we had too, though. They did record our class, but it was with Derek's class, I think, originally on the dashboard. But the other thing is that we didn't do that we just barely done right before we left for Landscape Summit was, and this is my fault for not writing this down, but you make sure you sign up for Google services, because I feel like that helped us out.
For sure.
Just the website, we were paying for Google ads, but we weren't certified, if you will.
Yes. Yeah. You'll have to send me a request and I will put a good word in for you.
All right. Well, thank you.
Yeah. So thank you for your time today. It's been invaluable and a real blessing. It'll be a real help to other people that have gone through what you guys have. And I know your time is precious and you have a family and it's Sunday. And so I just want to thank you both very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful day.
You too.
You too.